tariffs charges whether or not a specific complaint has been made for tariff adjustment. And under G, to approve rates of charges and terms and conditions of electricity services provided by the generation, transmission, and distribution companies. That is the reason we are here, as it will be expounded by the chairperson of the authority. I'm pleased to note that in pursuance of its tariff setting function, the authority has initiated and continued to implement and oversee the implementation of various initiatives during the tariff year ending 2023. Just to highlight a few, the authority has approved the end-user tariffs paid by all electricity consumers throughout the year 2023, attaining the delicate balance between equitable and stable tariffs and maintaining the sustainability of the electricity supply industry. Under its charcoal to power initiatives, the authority has continued to promote e-cooking through special tariffs of 412 shillings per kilowatt hour for domestic consumers, that is domestic cooking, and 451.4 shillings per kilowatt hour for institution cooking, like hospitals, prisons, and the like. The authority has also continued to monitor the performance of the consumers categorized under the extra large industrial category to ensure that productive use of electricity is fully realized. And as of today, this category is enjoyed by 47 approved extra large customers. Relatedly, the authority has continued to implement the declining block tariff for industrial consumers to achieve lower marginal costs of production and increase competitiveness in the region, with monthly consumption thresholds determined by ERA for each qualifying industrial consumer. The authority approved the investment plans for generation, that is Uganda Electricity Generation Company, Uganda Electricity Transmission Company, Uganda Electricity Distribution Company, other distribution companies, and the Umeme Limited, towards implementation of various initiatives to provide adequate generation, increase the transmission infrastructure, upgrade, repair, and/or maintain and expand the distribution network in order to support the growing demand for electricity, improve reliability of supply in the different parts of the country, and promote access to electricity as well as reduce power losses. In March 2023, the authority facilitated the successful handover of the 308 megawatt Nalubale Chira Generation Complex by ESCOM Uganda Limited back to the government of Uganda. The generation complex currently is managed by the Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, which now holds the investments of over $51.6 million implemented by ESCOM, which is critical for the sustainability of the electricity supply industry. The authority has further taken major steps towards developing regulatory frameworks, especially for the private participation in the transmission segment. The necessary consultations with stakeholders were completed and this regulation enacted. Furthermore, in order to ensure the financial sustainability of the electric supply industry, the authority approved the implementation of the framework for tariff reduction pegged on demand growth performance targets for qualifying and eligible manufacturers. The authority approved a reduced electricity tariff of 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour for the shoulder and off-peak time of use, and 6.85 cents per kilowatt hour for peak time of use, effective February 2023. The authority, working with the Uganda Manufacturers Association, has embarked on the assessment of this tariff reduction initiative to address the challenges observed during the first year of implementation and to inform the tariff incentives for the year 2024. Following the amendment of the Electricity Act 2022, ERA developed the regulations for the direct purchase of electricity by specified categories of consumers as provided for under Section 56 of the amended Act. The authority has developed the attendant wheeling agreements to operationalize the regulations for direct purchase of electricity following its gazettement in December 2022. Further still, ERA is working with the Manufacturers Association to facilitate the direct purchase of electricity by industrial customers. So far, the authority has received and approved 2 applications under this framework. And the applications were, one was the Munyenye Solar Company Limited, selling power to Nile Breweries Limited in Uyukwe District. And the other one was again by the same company, Munyenye Solar Company Limited, but this time selling power to Nile Breweries in Imbarara District. So the direct sale of electricity will commence soon. In respect of quality of service, the authority has assessed compliance by the distribution companies with the quality of service standards. Rewards and penalties have been implemented, which this is very, very critical for ascertaining the quality of service enjoyed by the electricity consumers. The assessment has revealed the areas in need of improvement by the companies, and these have informed respective action plans that the authority shall continue to monitor to ensure timely implementation for improved service delivery. Further still, the authority has undertaken inspection of the distribution network to establish the respective capacities and capabilities required to sufficiently meet the needs of the electricity consumers. And the associated investment requirements have been considered and approved by the authority where necessary. While the authority, working with the distribution company, has deliberately has put in place and made deliberate efforts in ensuring that consumers access reliable and quality power, this has been affected by vandalism and the safety of electrical equipment in different parts of the country. The authority would like to acknowledge and appreciate the Uganda Police Force, the Uganda People's Defense Force, other security operatives, and the public for their increasing support in the fight against vandalism, and as can be observed through the various reports. Recognizing the fact that the fight against vandalism requires great collaboration, the authority encourages all the electricity consumers and the general public to be vigilant and report any suspicious people seen around electricity infrastructure. On a happy note, allow me to thank you for the continued support and share that for all our dedication in pursuing the authority mandate as prescribed by the Electricity Act, the authority has added to its collection of awards and recognitions in the year 2023 with the following. We were privileged to receive the Crested Crane Medal from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, during the celebration to commemorate the International Labour Day in May 2023. We look at this as an appreciation of the sector performance, not only the regulator, but the efforts that the various players are putting in to ensure that we fuel the economy. We were also again rated the #1 regulator on the African continent. And this has been for the previous 5 years. This is an assessment undertaken by the African Development Bank under the Electricity Regulatory Index Study, and the Ugandan Regulatory Framework has been assessed #1 for 5 consecutive years. That is 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and most recently, 2022. To be on the top brings happiness, but to be sustained on the top for 5 years is evidence of the great performance that all of you are putting in to ensure that we have a mature and transparent regulatory framework. We were voted overwhelmingly to host the Secretariat of the Independent Regulatory Board of the East African Power Pool. So soon, you will be seeing our sons and daughters qualifying to get jobs to serve at a regional level with the Secretariat located here in Kampala. We also voted the best regulatory authority nationally, awarded by the public opinions, because it is easy for you to be recognized on the continent and even globally, but a preacher is heartily praised in their own land. So for us to also be recognized nationally as the best regulatory authority, it brings encouragement and reassurance that the work that you are doing is being appreciated by the public. We also voted under the Responsible Investment Award to be the best, again, regulator that is facilitating the investment climate, again awarded by Public Opinions International. And the list can go on and on and on. I only cited the major recognitions. Moving into this tariff year that we are here to have a public hearing, that is 2024, the authority will focus on the following initiatives, among others. We will encourage the sector to adopt the Internet of Things, the ICT, the artificial intelligence, the digitization, the use of ICT to manage data under the Regulatory Information Management System, and the various advanced technological initiatives to be able to come up with resilient designs that will, among others, mitigate vandalism and lead to improve the service delivery and overall sector efficiency. So we are looking at gradually progressing to self-healing networks that communicate to be able to meet your desires in the area of reliability and availability of supply. The authority, together with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development and all stakeholders, We are in the preparation of the transition of the main distribution concession from Umeme to the next nominated operator. We will focus on that too. The authority will also promote investments aimed at growing demand for electricity, improving reliability, and reducing technical losses. We will also undertake a focused oversight on the implementation of the various new connection initiatives. These, among others, will include the electricity scale-up being managed by a project management and monitoring unit in the Ministry of Energy, the hybrid connection policy, the rebate policy, and all these are geared towards accelerating access to clean energy so that our population can benefit and enjoy the increased generation. We shall continue to oversee and undertake capacity building across the sector, and as well undertake change management programs for the electric supply industry to ensure sustainability as we traverse the various changes within the electricity supply industry. We shall promote sector efficiency through setting performance targets with attendance, rewards, and penalties in line with the provisions of the Electricity Act to ensure financial sustainability across the electricity supply value chain. We have already adopted as the ERA the environmental, social, and governance principles, and going into 2024, these will be enforced across the electricity supply value chain for sustainability. We will also continue to implement initiatives for tariff reduction, specifically to achieve 5 cents for manufacturers, increase productivity, and contribute to tariff reduction for the rest of the customer categories. The public many times believes that we favor the manufacturers, but the manufacturers add the value, grow demand faster, and that growth in demand brings more revenue to the electricity supply industry, and that revenue is used to reduce tariffs for other customer categories. Allow me to thank the government of Uganda through our mother minister, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, the cabinet minister, the Minister of State, both for energy and minerals, the technical team led by the permanent secretary, the board of ERA, management and staff of ERA, the licensees, the electricity consumers, the media houses, and the public in general for the continued support that has enabled us to achieve the progress reported today. Finally, allow me to thank, through my minister, the President of the Republic of Uganda, for prioritizing the energy sector through the various budget cycles and giving the great support that we have received, without which we would not have achieved the achievements that we report on today. The President has prioritized the sector at all levels of decision making. As I conclude, I now take the pleasure to invite the chairperson of the Electricity Regulatory Authority, who is the presiding officer for the public hearing, Dr. Sarah Wasagali-Kanabi, to make her remarks and preside over, open, and then later on preside over the public hearing. For God and my country. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, CEO. The representatives of the ministries. I've seen the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance representatives, the heads of government agencies present, the licensees in the electricity supply industry, the business community, civil society and advocacy organizations, consumer representatives, the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Dr. Sarah Wasagali Kanabi, the board chairperson, Electricity Regulatory Authority, and the presiding officer at this public hearing on tariff review. I bring you greetings from the Electricity Regulatory Authority. With great pleasure, I welcome you all to this public hearing in respect to application for electricity tariffs for the year 2024. In accordance with Regulation 18, Section 2 of the Electricity Regulations of 2007 relating to permits, licenses, and tariff review, the Electricity Regulatory Authority received applications for tariff review from the following licensees. Umeme Limited, I've seen the MD has led the group. Mr. Babunji, thank you for leading the team. Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited, Mr. Mesugwa, I've seen you. Thank you for leading the team. Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, I'm not seeing the MD, but I've seen the team, so I don't know who the team leader is. And Electricity Transmission Company Limited, I've not also seen the MD, but I've seen the team. This public hearing is a hybrid meeting where we have the physical meeting here at Imperial Royal Hotel in Kampala, but we also have participants online via Zoom, where stakeholders shall be permitted to participate in the deliberations. Members of the public can also follow us on our website and also on our social media platforms. The notice of this public hearing was published in the New Vision newspaper on the 28th of November this year, and stakeholders and the public were invited to register their participation in the public hearing. This public hearing is part of the consultative process in line with the Electricity Regulatory Authority's principle of transparency and ensuring that stakeholders are involved in the tariff review process, and it is part of the authority's decision-making process on the tariff. At this public hearing, you'll have the opportunity to provide the comments on the application by the licensees. But also the licensees will have an opportunity to provide the justification for the revenue requirements that they have applied for. Your comments will be very useful in guiding the Electricity Regulatory Authority to make a final decision on the applicable tariff for the tariff year 2024, which will be announced not far from now. Now, this tariff, like the CEO has already highlighted, touches the focus areas of the authority that include affordability. In determining this tariff, it's one of the core focus areas: affordability by the consumer, reliability, quality of service, access to electricity and demand growth, but also sustainability. So all licenses, as you report for the coming years, we want you to report on the issues of the environment, social, and governance. I therefore urge you to actively participate in this engagement, and I want to thank you all for your commitment, for always taking part in this tariff review process. I will not dwell much, but when the CEO was highlighting the achievements of the sector through the regulator, you didn't show any excitement as people in the sector. When they tell you the regulator has been the first on the continent for 5 years, I don't know whether you didn't hear, or I should say it again. When you are told the regulator has been the best by public opinion in Uganda, at least you are now talking. Our CEO was awarded the medal, the Crane Medal. We are also the best in governance by Public Opinion International. And we are hosting the Independent Regulatory Board of East Africa Power Pool. We competed for that hosting. And you, our own, are going to get most of the jobs. So you should clap for that. And the chairperson of the authority last month was certified as a global energy, green energy manager by the Global Energy Council. So let's share these achievements together. You are the reason we shine. Okay? So we shall continue to shine. It is now my singular honor and privilege to declare this public hearing open. Thank you. So Julius, come over and take us through the next item. Thank you very much.
We can do better in clapping for the chair, isn't it? Thank you. You see, I am a communication person by background. We have a principle that says that if you don't tell your story, then someone will tell it, and they will tell it according to their interpretation. So, Chair, thank you so much for emphasizing our story from our point of view. But with that, I want now to welcome the Secretary of the Authority to come and take us through the rules of a public hearing. This is not a ritual. Ladies and gentlemen, I saw somebody last year posted on Twitter, and he was actually staff in the sector, that the regulator took us through a ritual of the rules of a public hearing. This is very significant, as the Secretary will tell you.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, for that preamble. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I observe all the protocol that has been established. The presiding officer and chief executive officers, in their remarks, I've already told you why we are here and the significance of this engagement. My duty is to guide you on how we are going to engage and how we are going to be a good audience so that we can listen to each other in an organized way. I just want to emphasize the first point is that ensure that you have registered at the entrance. There's a attendance register. This, among other things, helps us to assess the effectiveness of our communication channels and how we are reaching out to you. We'll be able to know who is here and who is not here. It helps us to improve in our engagement. So I encourage you, if you have not signed, please do. Secondly, the Electricity Regulatory Authority will summarize the applications for the licenses, as have been mentioned, following which they will be invited to present their application in great detail. We shall be expected to be attentive so that when Q&A session reaches, we're able to ask and give views and opinions that can help us make better decisions. I want to emphasize that let's take control or charge of our mobile devices. I encourage you to put them in silent so that they don't go off in the course of this engagement. In the course of this hearing, if you feel that you want to make a contribution or a question or ask for clarification, simply raise your hand and the presiding officer will give you an opportunity to make your comment. However, if given that opportunity, also be precise, succinct, and brisk, and do not veer off from the subject. Let's remain focused so that if you have a question to ask, be specific and do not make allegations that you cannot substantiate. Let's remain factual. Let's not use language that can be offensive or annoying to another party. I just wanted to emphasize that the hearing will be conducted in English, but in unique circumstances, should there be need for an interpreter, we shall make arrangements for that. All questions will be directed to the presiding officer. And please, if you have not been allowed to speak, wait for an opportunity to speak. And finally, the decision on the applications will not be made here today, but your views, your comments, and your contributions will be taken into account in arriving at the final decision. Finally, let's be a good audience. I thank you for listening to me, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Please raise this mic a little high. And Mr. Kasita, let's have the UGCL presentation ready.
Okay, Julius, you're not the chair to invite who presents next. Don't usurp the powers of the presiding officer. So the first presentation is by Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited. Can I invite the leader of the team? Yeah, you have 20 minutes to make that presentation.
Thank you, Chairperson. And if you can come and just assist on this. Yes. Okay. That's better. Yes. Sorry about that. I think the technology is a bit slow. So they will be moving the slides. Chairperson, this is the presentation for UGCL. And once again, I'm George Tusingwire Mtetweka, Chief Operations Officer. We shall make this presentation together with my team, with the CFO, and we shall address the questions as a team. That's the summary of the presentation. So I request that we go to the next slide. That's the background information about UGCL. We are incorporated under the Companies Act, and the shareholding is 100% by government, and we have a board. And then we have a number of other facilities that we are operating that are licensed by the authority. And at this point, I want to thank you, the chair and the ERA team, for supporting UGCL thus far. And the presentation we're going to make largely is only focusing on the investments that we require for Nalubale Kira for 2024. But you supported us through the takeover of Namamve. You have supported us through the takeover of Nalubale Kira. And soon, Karuma, its takeover is also coming along. So we do thank the authority for that support thus far. The Nalubale complex, as the CEO made in her remarks, it's a 380 megawatt facility, 180 megawatts installed capacity at Nalubale and 200 megawatts at Kira. I know many people sometimes say that Kira has never even operated, but we tested this and the 200 megawatts are actually there. And so at the time of takeover, these tests were done to confirm that Kira has the 200 megawatts and Nalubale has 180 megawatts. So these tests were done, and I can confirm that in the last 20 years when ESCOM was operating these facilities, the installed capacity never changed, and it's there and it's available at the disposal of our customer, who is UTCL. In terms of the concession as per the concession agreement, it's ended on the 31st of March at midnight, and on the 1st of April, we had a celebration to mark its end, and that's when UGCL took over the operations. During the 20 years, ESCOM was able to invest quite a sum of money as approved by the regulator, around 51 million for the investments, and a capex of around 9.4 million. And all that money went into making improvements of the complex. But still, as we know, there's wear and tear that is continuous, there's obsolescence that is continuous, and we need more investments to be done into the facility. And as we began on 1st of April, we ran to the regulator with a lot of need to add us more money for 2023, which they did, and they added us around 8.2, and as we shall see later, million, which we are executing right now. We can go to the next slide. Those of you who missed the takeover ceremony, that is the ceremony. You can see that Engineer Ziri is there witnessing that wonderful moment for the takeover. And then we took on almost all the staff, especially the technical staff, 100%, and some of the support staff that's where we had gaps, because as you come, you have the head office staff. We couldn't take on everyone in the support staff because you would have redundancy and duplication. But we have all the staff, and during the introductions, we missed the generation manager. Daniel, you can stand and wave to the people. Engineer Daniel Oluga is the generation manager. So he's the one responsible and overlooking all those stuff that you see there to ensure that the facility continues its operations. Next slide. In terms of budget, those are the numbers that make our assumptions for 2024-2025 budget. As UGCL, as a public company, we run a fiscal year. So that's why we're talking about 2024-2025. But for the tariff that will be approved by authority, usually it's a calendar year. So what we are looking at will be for 2024, but then in a way it spills over to, for us, we look at that transition, because from July, we switch to the next fiscal year. I will request the CFO to come and take us through these numbers. He's better at that than me. For the numbers, I will just do the other things on engineering.
Morning once again. Reintroduce myself, Susan Tafumba Isubikalu, Chief Finance Officer. In terms of the budget estimates for Naluba Lekira, we have a budget for the GOMC costs, and this was already approved by ERA for the GOMC costs. The initial approval we had was 27.7 billion. And then we had a request for a modification of about 2.14 billion, giving us a total request of 29.9 billion. The modification has already been approved, so we consider that already a done deal. And we had additional requests on top of the 2.14 for the ICT licenses. That was to the tune of 200.1 million. As the CEO had already mentioned, and the chair, that the focus is really going to be on automation and in terms of digitization. So we want to try and improve our processes and ensure that they are also ably paid for in terms of the licenses. So then the other issue there that we had applied for was the performance incentives, totaling to about 172.8 million. So thereby giving our total GOMC costs, that is generation, operation, maintenance costs, in terms of what ERA approved for that year, being 30.312 billion. Now, our total staff costs coming out of that, we have 15.4 billion. And because we have shared costs, which are contributed to by all the other business units, we have Naluba Lekira that is contributing 29%. And by shared costs, these are costs that are coming out of the support functions, the likes of maybe like the top management costs. You will have, I'll give an example where you have, you're occupying a building, office space has to be shared by all the other business units, because you don't only have one entity occupying a certain building, for instance, the head office building, and all the other costs that come with it, the likes of utilities and all that, which have to be shared by the staff that sit at head office. So we have a contribution that is made by all the business units. And this was approved by ERA. We applied for a cost allocation methodology at a certain point in time, which was approved, and that was based on the head count. So ERA allowed us to be able to have that 29% coming out of Nalubale Kira to support that. In terms of the administrative costs, we are looking at the 14.6 billion, which is also in line with what ERA had approved. Just to highlight that we have a 3-year license from ERA. So we had our GOMC costs approved for the 3 years. And as the Chief Operation Officer said, our focus today would really be on application for the investments for which we make an annual approval request. The additional issues that we wanted ERA to allow us was for the graduate trainees, because we don't want to lose this these skills. These people are very young. They come with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. They want to work. So we want to be able to keep these young people with us and empower them, because they are the future generation. They come with a lot of information, they need the guidance, and they need to also grow. So when they come, we don't want to obviously allow them to only work for a very short period. We want them to be able to transition into the entity as well and be able to give that support and add the value required to the entity. So we wanted an additional request of 305 million to be able to support the graduate trainees. Then also, the other request that we were making, because we had prior discussions with the regulator in terms of allowing us a return on investment, and the discussions that came out of that was that ERA would allow us a return on the buyout amount that we paid ESCOM, considering that this would come in as our equity from our shareholders. So we wanted ERA to allow us to be able to receive that return of 4% and also allow the recovery at 10% of the buyout amount. So that was one of the additions in terms of the applications that we are making, and therefore bringing our total to the 91.9 billion. Of course, as I said, the focus is on investments, which are standing at the 51.5, which I'm going to look at later on. The next slide, please. This is just highlighting our tariff methodology as approved by the regulator, and it's a capacity-based price, which is really ideally looking at the investment component, the O&M costs, and then the denominator there is the average tested capacity times the number of days within the year, multiplied by the targeted availability. Then in terms of the capacity payment, we obviously have the capacity price and the available capacity in kilowatt hours. And here we are looking at our parameters. I've already talked about what was approved by ERA, so I'll not focus so much on it. Of course, in addition to the GOMC costs, we have the other costs that come in there, the generation licenses. Currently, we are serving the Nalubale Kira generation license, and we also have to pay for the Karuma license because we haven't yet commissioned. So all this money is coming out of there. That is why we see that huge figure of 3.375 billion. The rest is just royalties and then the tested capacity. So we'll move to the next slide. Again, on tariff parameters, what we submitted for consideration. This is just to give you a graphic picture of what we requested for. And now this is the focus on investments. We made an initial request of 13.7 billion, but we went ahead to make an additional request for 2 components there. One of them being that we had challenges when we went to the market to do the assessments in terms of what we need to incur to procure these investments. We realized that there were price variations there, what we had budgeted for initially would not be sufficient to cover these costs. So we had to make an additional request of 478.4 thousand US dollars, purely surrounding around the variations in price. And then we had an additional $7.2 million request. And this came in later because of the challenges we're going to see ahead. The major one being the fact that we need to consider procuring a floating boom because of the floating islands arising out of the issues with the water levels. This wasn't envisaged at the time we were making the initial application, but with this growing challenge, we realized that we need to have this on board, to have a permanent solution to be able to mitigate that challenge. So this 7.2 is really, the material figure there is for that floating boom to the tune of about 6.5 million US dollars. So the total of our investment plan, Chair, comes to the total of 21.4 million US dollars. And of course, when we do the conversion to UGX, that is the 80.4 billion. I've already talked about the request to allow us to recover the return on buyout amount, so I'll not focus on that. And of course, again, as we will see in the challenges, we have an issue of, it was still on the slide before, but I'll come into it here. The other additional request we also made was on the salary alignment, because we still have a challenge in terms of the salary disparities. We took on staff from ESCOM, and of course, they're now UEGCL staff. But the challenge we have now is that they seem to be having a lower salary in comparison to what the UEGCL scales are at. And of course, this funding comes out of the tariff, and we've made a humble request to the regulator to be able to consider this as well, because it is really a very big challenge. It is a growing challenge. The mood is also not very good, because of course, when you have two people working at doing the same job, but earning different salaries can also be very challenging. So when we go to the next, that request was to the tune of 2.7 billion per annum, which we hope and pray that the regulator can humbly consider going forward. So I'll move to our next slide. There is current challenges at Nalubale Kira complex. As I'd already mentioned, one of our requests in terms of the investments was to procure the floating boom. And we'd have a staff because of the growing challenge of the floating island as a result of the rise in the lake levels. And of course, the short-term measure here was to flush the islands, but of course, it's not sustainable because it erodes the spillway Ogi and the Stilling Basin. And of course, this then will have to incur more costs in order to be able to repair this, which we don't want to do in the medium and long term. So that is why we've gone ahead to consider a long-term solution to be able to manage the floating island. I've already talked about the salary disparities, which is one of our major challenges within Nalubale Kira, because of course it has created a lot of unrest for the staff there, and we are trying to manage. Then of course the other challenge is on the procurement. We realize that most of the people that we think can be able to support us in terms of supplying this equipment are not very familiar with the PPDA processes, and they don't seem to be willing to participate in these bidding processes. So of course, this creates a delay in terms of the procurement process, and we've tried to create awareness for the suppliers. Actually, as we're here today, we have a workshop ongoing in Africana to be able to create more awareness for the suppliers to be able to understand the PPDA processes and the requirements so that we can encourage them to be able to participate in these bids. And then we have, a lasting solution towards these issues. Of course, we want to be able to utilize the funding that ERA is giving us in terms of the investments, but that seemed to be the growing challenge, especially on the procurement side. The next slide there is just to give us a status of the funding that were given for the investments for the current year, 2023. This was approved a little late, and we really appreciate the regulator for having allowed us to be able to do this. The original request was at 5.2 billion, and that was for 7 projects. And in July, the regulator made another consideration for us of the 8.2 million US dollars investments for 24 projects. So as you see on the graph there, in terms of implementation, we have 2 of those projects already under implementation. The procurement's concluded, and we are trying to ensure that the projects are also completed. In terms of contracting, we have 5 projects at that stage. And when we say contracting, we mean that we've already progressed with the procurement and only waiting to issue out contracts. Of course, as government, when you know that there are certain contracts that are going beyond a certain value, they also have to go through the Solicitor General. And of course, we also have to wait for those approvals respectively. In terms of evaluation, we have 14 of those projects under evaluation, and then 10 of them are at the pre-bidding stage. So through you, Chair, you can see that we are making effort, even in the shortest time possible, to be able to ensure that these projects are onboarded and implemented and completed duly within the time frame that we have anticipated. And this one is looking at the investment request for 2024. As I'd already mentioned, the total is standing at 21.4 million US dollars, and the core at 92%, and the non-core taking up 8% of those investments. Then in terms of the breakdown of the investments, we have 62.3 relating to the life cycle replacements. These are overdue for obsolete equipment and upgrades. Then in terms of maintenance, we have 2.8% out of that bracket of 21.4 million US dollars. And then the category of spares and tools is 2.5%. And then ICT is taking up 0.2%. And then environment, safety, emergency preparedness is taking up 32.2%. Next slide, please. So through you, Chair, we hope that the request can be considered, because obviously as we can see here, the benefits of having these projects approved, we need to have the replacements done, the upgrades, refurbishments, and also be able to strengthen our ICT systems. Again, also consider safety and welfare for the personnel in terms of procuring equipment and emergency preparedness. So if approved, the anticipated benefits, we should be able to mitigate plant failures, ensure that the plant is up and running, readily available, and also ensure personnel safety and equipment, ensure that we have efficient operation and maintenance for the plants, enhance compliance to environmental management permits and licenses, and then we ensure that there is consistency in terms of the benefit for the people of Uganda to boost industrialization, and lastly, to ensure that there is skills development for the future of the sector. That is why we went ahead to make an additional request for the graduate trainees. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, UEGCL, for keeping time. You went just 1 minute beyond the 20 minutes. But you didn't tell us who is acting as the MD and where the MD is. No apology. Is it Madam Mutafumba or the Chief Operations? because people are going to ask questions and who is responsible to account.
Chair, leading the delegation on behalf of the CEO of UGCL, and I bring apologies from him. He wasn't able to attend. As we said, we have another parallel function going on at Hotel Africana, so he couldn't make it. So we had to split ourselves between the two functions.
Okay, that's noted. For the procedure, I think we shall have all the presentations and the questions will come at the end. So can we have the second presenter, UETCL? 20 minutes, Julius, please keep time.
The chairperson of the authority, who is the presiding officer for this public hearing, the chief executive officer of the Electricity Regulatory Authority, CEOs of the respective utilities who are present, representatives from the ministries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Jenkins Miro, the acting head commercial, and I'm leading the team from UETCL. I bring apologies from our CEO. He's unable to attend this due to other engagement, but he had promised that he would be following online in case the schedule allows. So I will be taking you through our tariff application for 2024. And as indicated, that is the content of our presentation, UETCL at a glance. I will look at the performance overview, our priorities for the budget, revenue requirement, and the tariff implication. And lastly, we'll look at the conclusion. Please go on. Go on, please. So UETCL is a limited liability company owned by government of Uganda, 100%. The shareholders, we have Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance. We hold 5 licenses. That's where we drive our mandate. And 4 of the licenses are under the Electricity Regulatory Authority. We have a license for bulk supply. We have a license for operation of high voltage transmission grid, and we have a license for system operation as a system operator. We have a license for power import and export. And the last one is a license for public infrastructure provision of optic fiber network, which is given to us by the UCC because of the fiber network we own. Our vision is electricity transmission for sustainable regional development. Next slide. And that is our mission. So those are the 5 strategic pillars which guide our operation in line with our CBP. We have security of power supply and regional cooperation, accelerated grid infrastructure development and stimulation of demand, robust human capital development, efficient business process and systems, and then sustainable financial growth. And next. So in terms of our UETCL grid statistics at glance, the installed capacity currently stands at 1,805 megawatts, following commissioning of